Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello and welcome to Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I am here with you with another new episode. And today we're going to talk about silencing the inner critic. We're going to talk about how we can move from negative self-talk into some more positive, just self-affirming self-talk. Because today's topic is one that so many of us face, and we don't really talk about it because I think we think it's normal. I think we think that talking to ourselves negatively is something that we need to do in order to achieve our goals. But I'm here to tell you that that is not true. We don't need to be hard on ourselves. We don't need to bully ourselves. We don't need to strong arm ourselves into results or into achieving our goals or into having what we want, right? It doesn't have to be a struggle. I feel like there's this internal belief system that in order to receive something good, we need to put ourselves through some sort of hell for it. And in this instance, the hell is negative self-talk. And if you're not familiar what negative self-talk is, it's that inner voice that whispers, that sometimes shouts, that it's the critic, it's the bully, and ultimately what he, she, they are saying to you is that you're not good enough, you're not worthy, and that you're never really going to change. It's always going to be like this. And I don't know when this happened in society, right? I think back and I'm like, like how did we evolve into this? And maybe that's a conversation for another time. And I'm kind of existential in that way sometimes, or I just think about things this way. But for the purpose of today, I just want you to know that it is something that I've dealt with for so long. It's something I deal with still. Right? I just see it now. I don't identify with it. I don't assume that when I get hit with a phone call that negative self-talk is calling, I don't believe what she says to me anymore. Right? I don't. In fact, I've gotten to the place where when I hear negative self-talk, I actually feel like I am on the precipice of something amazing, because otherwise negative self-talk wouldn't come up. Usually negative self-talk is the initial layer to shifting something inside of us, right? It's like when we're pushing the edge of change, the negative self-talk will come up. So if we see that, we can make a different choice of how we relate to the negative self-talk. But before I got to this place, I want you to understand and just really find hopefully some solace in the fact that I totally get negative self-talk. I've been there. And for years, I was my own worst critic. I was just like so constantly just grading on my own self-worth. And to be honest, when I was doing it probably as a teenager, as a young adult, I don't even think I knew how much damage it was doing. Because as I mentioned before, I thought that I had to struggle. I thought I had to be hard on myself because that was the key to getting what I wanted. That was the key to achieving my goal. That if I just was, more strict with myself, more like whip, kind of like that proverbial whip on myself, I would finally lose the weight. I needed to be more aggressive. I needed to be more aggressive with myself. I'd finally lose the weight, which would mean that I'd feel better and I would be better, right? Like I would finally be enough. But I'll tell you something. The brain is so weird like that because the brain thinks that, but then the nervous system has a completely different reaction. The nervous system totally doesn't see it that way. The brain thinks it's being like all great and they're like giving you the tool you need. And then you do it, but the nervous system like totally has a different response and then does the exact opposite. Because negative self-talk, the impact that it has on the body and the mind, the impact that the negative self-talk that the mind conjures up has such an impact on the body. Because the words that you speak, especially to yourself, whether they're aloud, whether they're in your head, whether you're speaking about yourself to someone else and it's negative, or whether you're just thinking to yourself about yourself, it becomes the house that you live in. And when you constantly are berating yourself, telling yourself that you'll never achieve your goal, you're never going to be able to get control over your eating, you're never going to be able to lose weight. It's just when you keep collecting evidence that you're a failure based on maybe not being perfect, which is okay because you can always learn from something that didn't go well, right? And you can always learn from that. Instead of jumping to, I suck, or like, this is never going to work for me, or I'm a failure, you can always go to, oh, what can I learn from this, right? That is such a different mindset. But what happens when we're consistently judging ourselves negatively and speaking to ourselves negatively is that you put your body into stress. And stress is the worst possible thing you can do for getting control over your appetite, for connecting you to your hunger and fullness cues, and for losing weight. Okay, it's the worst thing. When we think of stress, we always think of, I'm under stress, right? Like I have all these responsibilities that's causing me stress. We don't often realize that we can put ourselves into stress ourselves when we're by ourselves with no external things causing us stress, but just by the way we speak to ourselves. And then what happens is that your body ends up holding on. It holds on. It affects your hormone balance, and your body thinks that it's hungry when it's not hungry. Your body can't, understand when it's full or not because you're not connected to satiety. Really, you're not connected to your physical satiety because ultimately you're trying to be satiated emotionally, right? So you end up not really being connected to yourself physically, physiologically. Hormonally, stress hormones like cortisol, your brain, and I don't know if you ever felt this, but have you ever felt like when you're hypervigilant or when you're overanalyzing or when you're trying to like figure out what's going to happen in the future, you just get super tired and you feel kind of like thirsty. You just don't feel great. You feel tired. You might even feel inflamed, right? You might feel bloated. And for some people, you might be listening to this and you might be saying, oh, when I actually am under stress and I feel stressed, I actually like lose weight. I feel less bloated. Okay, that can be true for some people too, but then you end up feeling bloated because your hormones get imbalanced and your cortisol spike, you get inflamed, and your body holds on. Your body holds on to weight. It thinks it's in some sort of danger. So it sort of even makes you want to eat more, which is why sometimes people feel confused about their hunger and fullness cues. And then the weight becomes like a shield. It becomes a layer of protection between you and the world that you've created almost to protect your own self from your negative self. Okay. So what's happening is that your body is actually protecting you from your own negative self-talk with this shield, but it ends up disconnecting you from yourself and from what you really want, which might be connection, which might be weight loss, because of the way that you are going about getting to your goal, the way that you're speaking to yourself. And so what I really want to impart is that negative self-talk, even just pushing yourself hard, it's not a motivator, it's a trap. And what happens is that it actually becomes a trigger for being stuck in a shame cycle and also for eventual self-sabotage, right? Because if we strong arm ourselves or negative ourselves into some sort of behavior, again, like I said, our brain is really smart. Our brain is going to make us do that, but then it's going to be like, I hate this. So I'm going to rebel against this and I'm going to sabotage. So kindness is always the answer here, right? What can we do? So you want to be kind to yourself. You want to practice kindness to yourself first. And oftentimes this could be the hardest thing to do because no one sees it. It's like if a tree falls in the forest, if a tree falls in the forest, I think this is the line. If a tree falls in the forest and nobody heard it, did it fall? It did fall, right? So if you are kind to yourself and nobody hears it, does it matter? Yes, it matters. Yes, it matters. And so this goes back also to, prioritizing yourself and making yourself important, self-care, speaking to yourself in a positive, kind way. So I like the word kind rather than positive because I don't think we always have to be positive, but we should always be kind. So speaking to yourself in a kind, compassionate, empathetic, patient way is one of the most important self-care rituals you could do, more important than a massage. Right? It's like, oh, I'm so stressed. How many people go to massages to de-stress, but the entire time are speaking negatively to themselves the whole time, either about what they haven't done, what they need to do, how lazy they are. Oh my God. Right. So imagine you're sitting there getting a massage, but your nervous system is still on high alert. So ultimately the hormone imbalance is still going to happen. None of the real core, authentic, root self-care balance is going to happen, which is why the way you treat yourself and the rituals and the patterns and the ways that you prioritize how you are with yourself when you're alone with yourself is so important. And so something you can do immediately, first you need to catch yourself with the negative self-talk. And then you need to put your hand on your heart and you can say oh, I'm giving myself, I'm speaking to myself negatively. Take a breath and then ask yourself, is what I'm saying about myself helpful? Is what I'm saying to myself true? And am I being fair to myself? Okay, so these are some things you could say. Because again, curiosity and challenging those thoughts are the first step. And then you want to reframe, right? Instead of saying, I'm terrible, or oh, I'll never change, or I can't do this. We need to focus on the process and the small steps towards progress and result, right? Then checking off a to-do list thing or checking off something, right? I'm capable of growth and every small step I take is progress. And instead of I'm not good enough, you want to say I'm learning and I'm worthy of love and care exactly as I am. Right? So instead of focusing on results and outcome always, we focus on process and learning. And the shift isn't about, like I said, pretending everything is perfect or always being positive. It's just about replacing destructive thoughts with ones that are kind and empowering and slow you down and make you see how much control and power you truly have, right? It's about creating a mental space where you can actually thrive, right? Where there's wiggle room, there's room to breathe, not just feel like you have to survive all the time and just get to some sort of end goal. And I mentioned it before, but you want to practice self-compassion. And I know that this one can be difficult at first, right? If you're used to beating yourself up, self-compassion can sometimes seem like you're letting yourself off the hook. It can almost feel triggering, like you're not doing anything, right? Sometimes negative self-talk is almost like eating when you're bored, right? Because it's like you eat when you're bored because you feel guilt or anxious that you have nothing to do. Negative self-talk is the same. It's like you're speaking to yourself negatively because maybe there's just nothing you need to do. And so you feel like you need to do something. So you just like have this negative self-talk. But self-compassion is the allowance of not needing to fill that space, right? It's not letting yourself off the hook. It's not ignoring stuff. It just means that you're giving yourself the space to learn. It means you're just giving yourself the space to receive. And it gives you that ability to trust that life can work out for you without you having to strong arm life. So imagine this, like imagine you've just binged on food or something, and maybe you feel out of control. Maybe you feel like you failed. And your instinct might be to spend the next hours, days, just completely berating yourself, telling yourself just, how awful you are, like just what a failure you are, how weak you are, that you're never gonna, it's just like it's hopeless for you. But what if you took a moment and you paused and you felt how shitty that felt, right? Like that, I'm not gonna say like, oh, just show yourself grace and it's all good. Like it's not all good. You feel like crap. It's important that you do allow yourself to feel like crap, but stop it there, right? Like you could feel like crap, but stop it there and then say, I'm human. This is the self-compassion piece. Instead of saying, I feel like crap, I'm never going to change. I'm the worst. I'm just going to like stop trying. Instead, you just practice self-compassion. You did it. So definitely you have to own that, right? It didn't feel good. I don't like not feeling good. That is really key. I don't like not feeling good, but I'm human. I'm learning. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of like success. I'm worthy of feeling amazing. I'm worthy of getting to my goal. I'm worthy of embodying the life that I have in my brain and my dream, even when I struggle. Okay, so you allow yourself to talk yourself off the ledge before the shame spiral cycle drags you down. And it might feel silly at first to do these affirmations. Like this is an affirmation. I am human. I am learning, right? I am worthy of love even when I struggle. These are really good affirmations. And they can feel really weird, right? It's like there have been plenty of times that I've had this too, and you might too. Like you might go off, a week after listening to this or however long, and this is what could happen is that you could have a binge or something could happen, and you can remember that on this podcast episode, I told you to do affirmations, and you can remember that the affirmations are in this episode, but you could be like, oh, that's so stupid because you're just so overcome by the negativity. You have to be willing to not let yourself get overcome by the negativity. And this is the hard part because at first it's going to feel like you are dragging rocks up a mountain, right? It's going to feel like a massive lift to pivot and make that change. But the great thing is that the more you do it, the more natural it's going to be. And it's not even going to feel like effort anymore. You're just going to quickly shift from the negative circumstance that happened to the positive affirmations. And that happens relatively fast. Okay, so these affirmations, they're powerful when you do them in the moment that you need them, okay, because they're constructive. While negative self-talk is only destructive, it keeps you stuck. Self-compassion, on the other hand, it helps you to move forward, right? But you just have to pull the lever on self-compassion. And at first it can feel really hard to do because we can be so heavy into it. But it's like starting to train for a marathon when you've never run before, right? The first mile feels like forever. Then it feels like such a haul. It feels like such a heavy lift. And then once you get the first mile down, the rest start to come easier because your body just gets used to it. The same thing happens with your nervous system. It just gets used to it. And the last thing I want you to start to do in areas away from food and eating, I want you to start to notice when your inner critic shows up the most. Because if your inner critic shows up when it comes to your weight or in your body and when it comes to food, it definitely shows up in other areas of your life. So I want you to notice when the inner critic shows up. Does it show up when you look in the mirror, when you're around certain people? Because the more that you identify when the inner critic shows up, the more inner power that you source. because you could start to see the patterns in advance and you can prepare for them. And preparation is huge. For example, like if you find that every time that you mess up or you stray from your plan, that negative self-talk kicks in, use that as a cue to replace it as immediately as you can with a positive statement. Something like, I had a moment, but this doesn't define me. I can make a different choice next time, right? Like when it comes to food, say that you pause, you did it right. You're like, oh, I'm not physically hungry, but I think I'm going to eat. But, I want to emotionally eat. I shouldn't do it, but then you do it. It's okay, right? And then instead of the negative self-talk kicking in, right, you don't have to have that. You can feel that the disappointment, right? You be like, oh, it's disappointing. And I had a moment. This doesn't define me. I can make a different choice next time. And again, like I said, the repetition is super key here. The more you practice this, the more it's going to become second nature. And just a final thought on this, that this isn't about becoming someone who's perfect or never makes mistakes. It's about becoming someone who prioritizes feeling good, who supports themselves, who realizes that supporting yourself in a kind, compassionate way and having that value of treating yourself with compassion and kindness be sourced within you and come from the inside is so important for you to attract and your outside world to reflect that same feeling, right? It has to come from the inside so you can attract that vibration from the outside. And you're becoming somebody who treats yourself like you would a best friend, with love, with kindness, and with understanding, because you deserve it. We all deserve that. So let's just recap quickly here. So number one, you want to recognize the impact of negative self-talk on your body and your mind, right? It's not just a thought. It ends up impacting your nervous system, your hormones, your immune response, right? It ends up creating the way that you relate to your environment. You want to reframe negative thoughts. You want to challenge them. You want to replace them with more empowering and constructive thoughts. And you want to practice self-compassion, right? When you make a mistake, you want to show yourself grace as quickly as you can and just keep practicing this mindset that you don't need to be perfect. You can always learn from imperfection, from something going wrong, and you're always worthy of love, always. Okay, so these are the tools that have helped me. They've helped countless of other women on the same journey. And I want you again to know you're not alone. Right? You're not alone in this. Silencing the inner critic takes time, repetition, failing at it, trying again. It's possible, right? It's 100% possible, and it's probable when you practice it, and it is 100% worth it. So if today's episode resonated with you, I would love for you to hit the like button on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, rate and review the podcast on Apple and Spotify. Your feedback helps me so much to continue to create content that supports you in becoming the truest version of yourself. And if you are ready to take this work even deeper, I am thrilled to invite you to join my new coaching experience that I'm going to be opening up for enrollment very soon. It's called Eat Freely, Live Fully, the Mentorship. It's a life-changing accountability-based mentorship. Super, super affordable, designed to help you understand your food triggers, experience true food freedom, and achieve permanent weight loss without medication, without deprivation, and without counting macros and calories. And if that sounds like the kind of transformation that you've been looking for, sign up for the waitlist today. Just click the link in the show notes or go to my Instagram and go to the website. And thank you so much for being here today. And I will be here next week to share more on all of these topics: self-empowerment, healing emotional eating, sustainable weight loss. You deserve all the love, all the kindness, and let's just keep going. So until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.